impact analysis here. First of all, in a world where we don't take responsibility for all forms of, where we don't take responsibility, all forms of violence are required. That is where our impact is. If we don't take responsibility for things like imperialism or capitalism that causes wars or violence, or that's structural in the system. The reason why India and Pakistan go to war and they're very dissatisfied is because they aren't taking responsibility for their own individual actions. Like, this is the exact type of thing that we're talking about. The point of where they completely ignore these arguments that responsibility is always going to be the most important thing. Right, this is at the bottom of the disc. Right? They get up here and they tell you that we never make any arguments about that we don't extend our case. This is at the bottom of the disc. Just because they miss it doesn't mean that we have to be held accountable for this. The very thing, they say that the things that right. So just extend these arguments from the one that we make at the bottom of the disc. That the very reason why India and Pakistan go to war is because they aren't taking responsibility. Like, they try to say all throughout this trial, like, they take responsibility too, and that they have to the same things that we do. That before they drop this argument that the fact that India and Pakistan go to war is because they do not take responsibility means that they don't actually advocate and taking individuals taking everyone taking their own individual responsibility, which is exactly what the case is. And even if we win that the disadvantage impact isn't part of the fantasy, which it is, we will win that there are infinite causalities of extinction. Our Dragonensky evidence, I think it's our last new Dragonensky evidence says that the droppings of the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like things like that, when we can are always going to be about things like that are always going to be apparent in the status quo, and we don't take responsibilities for our fantasy because there are always going to be infinite causalities of extinction in the status quo. When we confront our fantasy, we are confronting the reasoning for the existence of violence in the status quo. Starting to just drop off the entire round, and there are 1AC, and that's the very thing that we're advocating throughout this round. So, right, okay, politics. Okay, first of all, I think the extent of politics is that is their fake evidence. This fake evidence is really bad. It simply indicates that Kashmir is a really dangerous place. It does not say that there will be a war in Kashmir. It just says that it's really dangerous there, and that it might be, and then that wars might spread. Yeah, it just says that it's really dangerous there, but it never says that a war is necessarily going to happen. It doesn't say that a war is necessarily going to happen. It definitely doesn't give you any type of time frame. It's hard. It simply says that it's dangerous. So you're never going to be able to vote on this fake card to the extent because it's really bad. You should look at it after round. Then all of our bipartisan arguments are a reason why there should have been all these impacts that they're talking about. Our bipartisanship evidence.
These are all the ones.
Okay. So our bipartisanship evidence says that bipartisanship is screwed in the future. Basically, they read evidence that the Los Angeles Times 6 code. They read evidence that says the India deal will pass down. Bipartisanship won't last. Bipartisanship won't last long. That long. If bipartisanship can't last through all the stuff that our cards talk about, then it can last through our plan. So the warrant of this card is that bipartisanship is screwed up by one both nomination, 2 the judicial nominations, 3 the food policy, 4 the Vietnam visit. Bipartisanship was a joke to stave off impeachment talk. Now that Jins have committed to not impeach, he's switching gears, and then each of these arguments function as a warrant as to why their link is apparently denied, and the reason why the bipart will continue to be screwed. That's all the stuff that our Los Angeles Times 6 talks about. They completely ignore and drop this card, and as a result of that, they miss all these arguments as to why bipartisanship is never going to be a problem that we're going to have to face within the future. That's the reason why their dissent is never going to happen. That, along with the fact that their fake evidence is terrible and doesn't actually say anything about how a war is actually going to come now. It's going to be getting their dissent.
The evidence predicts that bipartisanship in the future will be screwed.
Right. Their evidence predicts that our evidence predicts that bipartisanship in the future will be screwed. Like, our evidence is predictive, whereas their evidence is talking about how bipartisanship is descriptive. Right. Okay. The topic accountable, there's no extinction of the case, but that's not true. But he said this in the bottom of the dissent. Then he said that they said the state constitution is more supreme, but that state constitution gets changed. They said see the first evidence, which says the counterclaim will be rolled back because people at state level will use referendums to overturn state legislation. They say that the state constitution is always going to be more supreme than anything else, and getting people to and perpetuating this type of responsibility onto other people. The state constitution is subject to get changed because the people are right now are espousing this myth of youth and are espousing the fact that the idea of youth sexuality and what that should be comprised of. That they're going to vote people into office that also propagate that myth of youth. The great thing about the Supreme Court is that there are 9 justices that are appointed, and that they're able to, when they get into office, they're not going to be swayed by these majoritarian pressures that our Hirschhub evidence talks about. So their conflict is never going to be able to solve because it doesn't have any staying power. Because one, what the first evidence says, either people are going to just vote people into office that also agree with the very myth of youth that they're talking about, because no one has taken responsibility yet. Because you have to take responsibility, because the only way you can take responsibility is by doing the plan. And two, our evidence indicates that even if they do vote in these people, they're always going to be swayed by majoritarian pressures. They're never going to be able to reach this place of responsibility, because they're going to want to stay elected. In order to stay elected, they're going to have to do what the majority and what their constituency wants them to do. And as in the status quo, the constituency is always going to want them to perpetuate this myth of youth, because the idea of containing bisexuality and the idea of suppressing bisexuality is what they want the status quo. If you don't do the plan, then you're always going to the myth of youth is always going to be perpetuated. It's always going to lead to the impasse of imperialism and imperialism and violence that we talk about. They say durable fiat laws. You don't get to fiat which judges get elected in the future elections. No, this is a specific warrant. This is a specific warrant as to why your actor is valid. Evidence that says the courts can't do this. If they had evidence saying that the Congress would respond by changing the constitution, that'd probably be a great argument. Our argument is that you have to defend your actor. That states are bad because they have term limits, which means that they have term limits, which means that they're going to be able to get voted out of office before they can actually end this myth of youth.